Boy, the sound of thunder. you know, that storm that you hear is sometimes that storm that we have in our heads when we determine that we're losing, quote unquote, a customer. And that customer has made a decision that for whatever reason they're going to do some or all of their business with someone else, and that can be very discouraging. And sometimes we can blame and we can point the finger. And we do a lot of research, and we find that when we lose a sale, we tend to blame one of the following three items. We can blame the economy, the ag economy. Well, the reason why we lost the sale was corn's got down to $3.45, and the guy just decided they couldn't afford it. The second thing that we can blame is our competitor. They had a better deal. Their price was lower, and they had these programs, so we blame the competitor. And then the third place that typical salespeople blame is their own internal company. They blame their company. They said, if we get our act together, then everything would be fine. And what we find is that the most successful salespeople don't invest a lot of time blaming. Rather, they do a lot of investigating in regards to thinking about their own process, what they might have done differently. They invest a lot of time thinking about what their next steps are. And that's really what we're going to do in our podcast today. We're going to talk about what do we do when a customer is going to leave us. What do we do? Because there's two normal reactions from what I call almost 90% of the salespeople that we assess in ag, what they do when they're going to lose a customer. One of them is they fight. And what I mean by that is that they say, well, good luck. They kind of have this attitude, well, blank them. They kind of just begin to say, well, there's nothing I can do, and, good luck to you. Sometimes they'll try to defend everything that they've done, and they'll kind of do, well, but, and the customer really doesn't think and change their mind in any considerable way by doing that. So we find that most salespeople, when they're going to lose a customer, they end up fighting with the customer. And then the second thing they'll do is they actually flight. They fly away, meaning they kind of go into this internal chamber where they don't communicate with the customer. So they just really don't say anything. And the customer never hears from them. In fact, the customer thinks, well, the way they treated me now, I guess it was probably the right decision to leave anyway. And so what I want to provide you today is a strategy that will work. You're going to need to practice it. You're going to need to make it your own. And again, this is for when a customer has told you that they're leaving you. You've done everything. You've used all the skills that I've provided you in past programs and workshops and podcasts. This is the last resort. Okay? So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to want to pick up your pencil and you're going to want to write this down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use what I call a statement of empathy. And so write down a statement of empathy. And that statement of empathy could sound similar to this, but there's probably 100 different ways you could do it. All are right. It's going to come from your heart, and you're going to say, Jim, I'm sorry to see you go. I'm sorry that you had to make that decision, and you made a lot of that decision based on, your current situation and how you're feeling right now. But I just want you to know I'm going to miss you, and I'm sorry to see you go. Just think about the power of that when it comes from your heart. Okay. The second thing we're going to do is we're gonna use this statement of kind of an analogy statement. If you want to write down an analogy statement, and that statement's going to sound a lot like this. I'm going to say, I hope it all works out for you. I hope that your decision to go over there or to use that product or to use that whatever, I hope it all works out for you. But if you ever look back at this decision and said something along the line, God, that was the worst decision I made, leaving you, or that was the wrong decision using that other product. I wish I wouldn't have done that. So you're going to say something along those lines. What would be those reasons where you would go, golly, I shouldn't have done that? What would be the things that you would see or feel that would cause you, when you're walking around your farm one day, to go, I shouldn't have made that decision to leave you? Now, you're going to hear a lot of silence because no one's ever asked them that question. The second thing that they're going to be reluctant to answer is that they kind of go, well, they don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you what would be those reasons. So they're reluctant because they don't want to share with you. They don't want to be transparent. They don't want to come clean. So you need to help them. You're going to want to help them start the list. So you might start the list. Well, would it be any yield differences that would cause you? Yeah. So you'd write down yield. And by the way, you're going to write these things down on a legal pad, and they're going to see you writing them down. Why? Because when they see you writing them down, it's important. And by the way, you're going to use this list. So you can't just do this off the top of your head. You got to use your pen and pencil. Well, besides yield, how about stand establishment or vigor? Oh, yeah, I'd probably see a lack of stand. So you're going to have them kind of visualize what would be the things that would cause them to go, God, that was a bad decision. So anything on the emergent side? Yeah, if I saw a lack of stand, David, okay. How about at spraying time? Let's say you sold them some crop protection products. How about if it plugged up if it plugged up the nozzle, that'd be horrible. Yeah, that'd be one of those times where, golly, no matter what you saved up front, boy, that wouldn't be enough, would it? Yeah, so plugged up nozzle. Anything else? Well, come to think of it, if I couldn't get a hold of them. Oh, okay. So getting a hold of them, if they told you that they could get in touch with you, but you call and call and call, never get a real person, yeah, that'd be it. So again, you're going to have to help them come up with the list. But nonetheless, you're creating this list of challenges and frustrations that might occur. Now, as I've done this in the real world, let me just share with you some of the things that I generally get in the agronomic world. I'm going to get yield. I'm going to get early vigor. I'm going to get stand establishment. I'm going to get germination. I'm going to get lack of quality in seed, meaning I open up the bag or the hard side box and, oh my God, I can't believe what I see. It might be on the crop protection side is that, golly, it just clogged up all my nozzles. It didn't mix well. I might get things like, I couldn't get a hold of them. They weren't, they were just gone. Couldn't get a hold of them. Couldn't get a hold of them on a Saturday morning when I needed them the most. Billing is incorrect. Hard to just understand the billing. It might be, just things around scouting. They overpromised and undelivered. They said that they were going to be here, and then they never showed up. So that list is always going to be different, but I want you to feel the flavor of it. Okay? You get the flavor of it? Okay. So here's your next question after you've built the list, and this is really important. Okay? So be ready with this. Be ready to write this down. Be ready to make it yours. Be ready to practice it. And I'm going to say, I hope none of this happens. But if there were one or two things on this list that you think is most likely could happen, what would be that one or two things? Now, again, they may be reluctant. They may say, well, I don't know if any, just what do you think? Because keep in mind, you got this at a low price. You're kind of probably wondering in the back of your mind if what might be missing out of the price that you might miss later. What is it? And you get them to tell you. Now, what they've just told you are what is their number one or number two fears that they think is going to happen. When you ask them the question, what do you think is likely going to happen? They're going to tell you what they think is likely going to happen. So what do you do next? You get to do this next. This is your next step. Your next step would be, if that happens, what are you going to do then? You got to ask this question. When that happens, or if that happens, what will you want to do then? Now, again, it could get really quiet because they've never had anybody ask them that question. You may need to help them along. You may want to then say, would you call me then? Oh, darn right, David, I'd call you for sure. I want you to know you can call me. So you're going to ask them, if this happens, what are you going to do then? Or how should we proceed? Now, the final step, and what do you do when everything else has failed and they're going to leave you partial or all their business? Remember, we don't want to fight. We don't want to have flight. What we want to do is then ask this question: is what expectations would you see in me this upcoming year? How would you like me to communicate with you? If I see or hear these things in the field, what would you like me to do? How many times would you like for me to check in this year? See, again, most people, when the person says, I'm not going to do any business, they just absolutely fight or they flight, and they don't do anything. And what you're just doing here is you're selling and you're leading with your heart, and you're really going to that farmer with a helpful spirit rather than a fightful spirit or a bitter spirit. These are the steps that you take when a farmer says, I think I'm not going to do business with you, or I'm not going to use this product this year. I want you to think of these steps. I want you to make them yours, because you know what's going to happen? You're going to be back on their farm next year. Something's going to happen. A ball's going to get dropped by the competitor. The product isn't going to perform like they thought. Commodity prices are going to change in some way. They're going to need you, and they're going to see that you are with them throughout this process. It is what you do when the storm clouds hit, and you're not going to hear that opening of the thunder clouds, but rather that farmer is going to think of you when you've had this conversation. They're going to have applause for you. They're going to think really good things about you. It's going to absolutely work. It's been great to have another session with you on the tailgate. I can't wait to sit with you where we have real conversations about real issues in a real way. This has been David Dahm with All Terrain. Have a good day.